that they see it as absolutely what led them to their prison cells. What they told me is a lot of them is they're mad that they screwed up and got caught for a crime, because if they could, they would go back and deploy again.
You also talk about, in the case of Marquez, how in Iraq he had used stun guns, and that ultimately he used the stun gun repeatedly on this man before he killed him back in Colorado Springs, or back in the United States.
Right. When we started this story, which took about 6 months to report, we thought this would be a story of inadequate health care and civilian problems at home, or problems in the administration of the base at home that led to these guys falling through the cracks. What we started to find when we talked to them in prison is that there were widespread, I guess you would call them violations of the rules of war. They start with some small things, like several soldiers I talked to used hollow point bullets. These are bullets that people usually use for deer hunting that spread when they hit their target, and so it can damage more flesh. Well, these are banned by international treaties, but a number of soldiers I talked to said that they were getting them sent from home through the mail, and that while it wasn't openly talked about, it was sort of something that they did without fear of retribution. The other things that they were ordering from getting through the mail include drugs, liquor, although people said that liquor was easy to get in Iraq as well, but if you wanted good liquor, you'd get it mailed to you. They were also ordering stun guns, 500,000 volt stun guns, through the mail and getting them sent to them. And soldiers told me that a number of soldiers would carry them on raids. Now, this isn't just one bad platoon. We talked to soldiers in multiple platoons and 2 battalions that reported the use of these stun guns. It goes on from there. Soldiers talked to me about randomly shooting cars driven by civilians. They talked to me about interrogating suspected insurgents and dropping them off of bridges. I want to stress here that we don't know how widespread this is. This could be a severe minority, and certainly there are a lot of people in this brigade that probably, when they hear about this behavior, are disgusted with it. They're honest, good people who are doing an almost impossible job. But what these soldiers told me is they were stuck in an insurgency fight they were not trained for, where there was no clear enemy. The main killer of these soldiers in this brigade was by far the improvised explosive device, essentially roadside bombs. They were getting blown up without ever getting to try and fight back at the people that were killing their friends. And so what they told me is that this anger and distrust for the entire population just burgeoned, and they thought that anyone was a potential enemy, and so that's why you saw them lashing out at the civilian population.
Dave Phillips is our guest, has written this remarkable 2-part series for the Gazette of Colorado Springs called Casualties of War. Dave, tell us about Kenneth Eastridge.
When I first started this story, one of the things that the Army told me is, well, a lot of these guys had criminal records before. From my research, what I found was that Kenneth Eastridge was the only person who had a criminal background. When he was 12 years old, he and a friend were playing with his father's antique shotgun, and he accidentally shot his friend in the chest and killed him. He pleaded guilty, was sentenced to counseling, and since then, his mother said his record had been clean. He had to get a special waiver to get into the Army, which he found after calling 12 different recruiters. One finally let him in. And for the first 2 years of his Army career, he was a good soldier. He was decorated with good conduct and achievement medals. There's no record that I found of any discipline problems. When he came back from his first tour in Iraq, he started abusing drugs and alcohol. He told me he had nightmares and paranoia. Like almost every soldier that I talked to, he always carried a loaded pistol with him everywhere he went. And he picked up a domestic violence felony charge for getting in a fight with his girlfriend and putting a gun in her face. Now, he was awaiting trial for that charge when the Army sent him back to Iraq for a second time. He wanted to go. He voluntarily skipped out on his charge, but the Army has rules. They have to go through a checklist before they deploy all soldiers. And one of the things they must check off is whether they have any pending civilian felonies. If so, they can't go. Someone, and I'm not sure who, checked that box and sent him anyway. Now, all the things that he was doing, abusing drugs, anger issues, paranoia, were signs of PTSD. He probably should have gotten treatment. Instead, he got more combat exposure. They went to an absolutely terrible neighborhood of Baghdad called Al-Dora, where his battalion at one point was losing a soldier a day to either the morgue or the hospital. And there he started to lose it, that's how he termed it. I'll tell you about 3 things that he told me he got officially disciplined for when he started to lose it. First, he did a raid on a house where he was searching for guns. And they did this all the time. They're trying to take guns away from the insurgents. And when he started to find guns that the man there hadn't told him about, he trashed the entire house, broke everything in it, stole the guns, kept them to sell. And he said he did this type of thing all the time, but that he got reported this time because the man whose house he raided was a well-connected man with friends in the United States government. And so he was put on punitive guard duty back at the base. But he said that he would regularly go into civilians' houses looking for guns. He would keep some of the guns that he found, sell them back to the Iraqi police, who would, he said, sell them back to the Shiite militia. He would also steal any prescription drugs that he found and cash. Now, that was the first time. The second time he was disciplined, he was on another patrol when they received fire from a nearby farmhouse. He fired about 20 grenades into the farmhouse, then went in and found a farmer there in a back room. He started asking the farmer who had fired on them. The farmer said he didn't know. So he shot one of the farmer's dogs. When the farmer said he still didn't know, he shot the farmer's other dog. At that point, his lieutenant intervened and said, hey, you need to go sit in the truck and cool off. When he walked out of the building, he killed the farmer's entire herd of goats with his machine gun. Then he ordered a private to kill his 2 cows, and then he shot his horse. For that, he was put on guard duty again. After that, he went on one more combat mission where he was sitting in the large machine gun on top of a Humvee guarding the street while his lieutenant and some other soldiers went to check out a building around the corner. Kenneth Eastridge told me that he just started shooting for no reason. It was a nice day on a civilian neighborhood street, and there were lots of people out and about, just barbecuing, playing soccer, things like that. When he started shooting, everybody rushed to their cars and tried to speed away because they wanted to get away from the fire. He said there was a vehicle driving ban on, and so as soon as people got in their cars, he started panicking because all he could think about is car bombs, and he started shooting cars left and right. He told me over about 30 minutes he shot something like 1,700 rounds from this large machine gun. I asked him how many people he thought he killed. He said not that many, maybe 12. He was court-martialed a short time later, but not for killing all those civilians. He was court-martialed for possession of drugs and disobeying orders. Once he was court-martialed, the Army decided that he was no longer fit to be in Iraq, so they sent him back to Colorado Springs, where they kicked him out of the Army. So essentially, they put this guy who they had trained to be a killer and who